Hello, this is Father Louis Skirty with Friends of the Word, the Weekday Word. Today we commemorate Saint Frances Cabrini, immigrant and patroness of immigrants. She is a saint of the 20th century. She was canonized in 1946. It is also Friday of the 32nd week of the year, and the readings, of course, have to do with the end of the liturgical year as we move toward the Feast of Christ the King. Thank you for joining us. We ask you to pass this on to your family and friends. God bless you. Let me hear from you. Father Lou Skirty at hotmail.com. God bless you.
Proclaim the glory of God. Alleluia, alleluia.
Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the days of the Son of Man. They were eating and drinking, marrying, giving into marriage, and right up to the day that Noah entered the ark, and the flood came and destroyed all of them. Similarly, as it was in the days of Lot, they were eating, drinking, buying, selling, planting, building on the day when Lot left Sodom. Fire and brimstone from the skies destroyed them all. So it will be on the day of the Son of Man, when it is revealed. On that day, someone who is in the housetop and whose belongings are in the house must not go down to get them, and likewise one in the field must not return to get what was left behind. Remember the wife of Lot? Whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it, but whoever loses it will save it. I tell you, on that night there will be two people in bed, and one will be taken, the other left. There will be two women grinding meal together. One will be taken, one left." They said to the Lord Jesus in reply, "Where, Lord?" He said to them, "Where the body is, there also the vultures will gather." The Gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Praise to the Lord Jesus Christ.
So we're talking about the end times. In theological words, it's called eschatology, the study of the end times. And we're noticing this, yesterday was Mark's Gospel, today's Luke's Gospel. The Gospels aren't sequential, like the same author, because the theme is more important. And the theme we're looking for is that, the end times. Because liturgically, we're moving toward the end of the liturgical year, and that will be summarized in the Feast of Christ the King, soon to be celebrated. So I like the Book of Wisdom, the continuation of it picks up in chapter 13, and it's such a pleasant understanding of creation. The Book of Wisdom says, "All men by nature are foolish, who were ignorant of God." And then it goes on to say, oh, you're like the skies, you're like the earth, you're like the wind, you're like the fertile ground, and men and women who are ignorant of God worship those things individually, or worship different gods who gave him or her those things. You're really foolish. There's only one God. So don't forget, this is a monotheistic author, one religion, which is one faith in one God, Yahweh, and he's in a polytheistic land. And his audience is caught up in the polytheistic thinkings of the day, that there's a God for water, God for plants, a God for earth. And you're well aware of the mythology of the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, in which they had gods and goddesses for various elements, but also gods and goddesses for various emotions. We all know Venus and Cupid. They're personifications of the emotions of love and passion. So the author is saying, you silly, silly people, in much more sophisticated words. God, Yahweh, created all of this. So if you like what you see, boy, you're going to really like and love the Creator who gave you all of this. So put it in perspective and focus on the Lord. And as the responsorial psalm tells us, the heavens proclaim the glory of God. You might say, well, what does that mean? Well, just look up, and there's God. He gave it to us. The clouds, the earth, the storms, the wind, the seas. He created nature. And if you're a scientist and you want to go Big Bang or Darwin or any other creationist theory of how it all came to be, it doesn't matter. That's why we're not scientists. We're faithful people, people of the scriptures. And our faith is whatever theory you come up with, God created it. Big Bang, little hole, black hole, doesn't matter. Whatever theory you come up with, God created it. So what an opportunity we have daily to appreciate and love, first of all, nature. And of course, Pope Francis' Laudato Si, the recent beautiful, beautiful, extensive and well-documented and researched encyclical on creation and appreciation of creation, really brings us back to that appreciation. That we are here as part of nature. Whenever anything went wrong and growing up and there was a storm or snow or hurricane, it was, oh shucks, this is canceled because of this. And we'd say, my brother and I would say, and we'd complain, and my father would say, Mother Nature's the boss. That was one of his phrases. The phrases your parents have, they echo in your ears, you want to go strangle, but obviously, but as a kid. But he was absolutely right. Mother Nature, created by God, is the boss. And it's natural. It's natural. So that means storms, beautiful days, cloudy days. That's nature. So Jesus is saying now in the book of Luke, I want you to get ready for the return of the Son of Man. Now don't forget, Luke's gospel is written well after Jesus, and Luke's gospel is aware of the destruction of Rome, destruction by Rome of Jerusalem, the Holy Land. So this could very well have been written after the destruction in the year 70. And so what he's doing is saying, don't get caught up into destruction and think that's the end. And then he compares it to the examples of Noah and Lot and Sodom. No, they had signs, and you have a sign too. The Son of Man will come back when you least expect him. So in other sections of the Gospels we hear there'll be storms and earthquakes and this and that. Don't worry about all that. Your focus should be the Son of Man, the return of the Son of Man. And your focus is not science. Okay, when they summarize his commentary with a question, where, Lord? And he says, where the body is, there also the vultures will be. He's summarizing science, and look at science the way it is, look at nature the way it is. God is above that. God is above that, because the faith that we have in the Son of God, Son of Man, returning, is that Christ will come back in his glory. There is a theologian, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who died in 51. He's a Jesuit theologian, and he was a paleontologist as well. Magnificent series of books, all honoring creation and looking at creation as a way of us worshiping God through the cosmos. And he made a description once, and he said all creations is like a pyramid. When we all, as part of creation, all the elements of creation, get closer and closer and closer and closer, and to the point, that's when Christ will return. His theory. That's when Christ will return. So what is he saying? When all of us really appreciate God in our lives, when all of us appreciate the mystery of Christ in our lives, when all of us appreciate the glory of creation and the respect of creation. And it's already, that's when the Son of Man will come. A little different than Luke's description, but still, you're going to be surprised. And he talks about the way we can be surprised. In her lifetime, Frances Xavier Cabrini dreamed of going to China to spread the gospel. And her bishop and her guides had a different thing in mind. She came from Lombardy in Italy, and they said, "You're so devoted, you're so interested in education and love of people. We want you to do something other than China. We want you to go to the new country, the new world, America." And she, as a child, almost drowned, so she had this deathly fear of water. In her ministry, she went back and forth between the United States and Italy about 13 times. You know what those boat rides must have been like in the early 20th century. When she came here, she focused on ministering to the Italian immigrants. And it's very important for us because it places the immigrant before us. And now we still have immigrants in our country. And we'll always have immigrants in our country. That's what our country's all about. And Mother Cabrini and my family had a special devotion to her. She died in 1946. My mother had a great devotion to her. We had a statue of her, a candle in front of her. We had a prayer room. Most Italians have this. It's basically a dresser with statues of all the saints that you can muster up. That was the prayer room. And we'd always keep a light on in front of it. And more than once, my mother had a great devotion to Mother Cabrini when she was expecting my brother, Michael. It was a complicated birth. She had a devotion to Mother Cabrini. He was born in 1947. And she prayed to Mother Cabrini. When Michael was born, his middle name is Francis. Not spelled like St. Francis the male, but spelled like St. Francis Cabrini. Because she had a devotion to her. She answered her prayers for Michael and our family. Often my mother would, Billy upstairs was ill at one point. We were very close neighbors. And they were Protestant. My mother said, "I'm going to pray to Mother Cabrini." She ran to church, right around the corner, of course, and she lit candles to Mother Cabrini. She came back and told Josie, "I lit candles to Mother Cabrini," because they were Protestant. They thought this was, like craziness. And guess what? Billy came back. Billy was healthy. He came out of his coma. He was healed. Was that St. Francis or the doctor, St. Mother Cabrini, or the doctors? God knows. But devotion and faith. She founded orphanages, hospitals, schools throughout the United States, especially Chicago, Newark, Philadelphia. There's a beautiful statue of her right across from Penn Station, Mother Cabrini. Why? Because she's a patron of Italian immigrants. Her body is enshrined in a glass coffin at the Cabrini School in Fort Tryon Park. Right outside of Fort Tryon Park, there's the Cabrini School. And when I used to take the students from DePaul into seeing the collection of the Metropolitan Museum, the cloisters, we'd stop and we'd look there at the cloisters for reliquaries, okay, things that hold the relics of saints. I said, before that, we're going to go see a relic. And we took the students to Mother Cabrini. It's a beautiful church, and her body is encased in this gold coffin as a wax mask, so you can see what she looked like. And the students would really have an appreciation of what we, as Catholics, have as one of our oldest traditions, relics, appreciation of relics. As a matter of fact, we have a section of the Acts of the Apostles in which people would get the cloths that they had and touch them to the face of Paul when he died, and those cloths would heal people. So that's our first use of relics scripturally. So it's a common thing. So Mother Cabrini, patron of Italians, patron of immigrants, patron of being patient with immigrants. I don't care if they come from Italy, India, Afghanistan, the next country over. They're our sisters and brothers. And she gave us a very fine example of how to care for the immigrant who was often lost, uneducated, poor. She had the schools, she had the orphanages, she had the hospitals. Great example of peace. And as we prepare for the return of Christ in glory, That's what we have to do. Love one another as he loves us. And as Mother Cabrini, Francis